Hello and welcome back to the channel, and apologies if you see me scratching and slapping myself. This is the Lithuanian forest and it's full of things trying to bite me. Right, in 2018 Royal Enfield came along with the simplest, most utilitarian form of adventure bike that really is probably on the market at the moment. That is the Royal Enfield Himalayan, and it has built up an army of very loyal followers and admirers. It may not be a bike of the year kind of bike, but it's got its own very unique charm. 4 years on, Royal Enfield have reduced the wheel size, they have taken off the front windscreen, and they have removed the crash bars. And what you're left with is, instead of having the adventure bike Himalayan, you've now got this, a Scrambler. And what's very interesting about this is the marketing from Royal Enfield, because if you go onto the website, the Royal Enfield Himalayan is very much focused on the adventure element of things, the big adventures, the big journeys. This, although it's a very similar bike, has been marketed at a younger audience, and it's been marketed more for the day-to-day riding, the city riding, the occasional green lane or off-roading on the weekend, and also the coffee run maybe with a few friends on a Sunday morning. And why I find this bike so interesting is because while Triumph and BMW with their Scramblers have taken a street bike and turned it into a Scrambler, Royal Enfield have gone the other way. They've taken an adventure bike designed to traverse the Himalayas, and they've slightly softened it and made it more road biased and turned it into a Scrambler. So let's get onto the road and see what this is like. I almost completely forgot not getting on the road yet. Let's do a walk around first. So the stats, this is a single cylinder, it's air cooled, it's 196 kilos ish, that is with fuel, it's 24 horsepower, and get ready for this, it is 4,600 pounds. I don't know how Royal Enfield do it. Right, front to back. Back to front, let's start from the back. So you've got this, as you can see, slightly lower suspension when compared to the Himalayan. You've got really nicely designed mudguard, that is I think that's plastic, that is plastic, yeah, that's plastic mudguard. You've got this number plate holder. I would, first things first, remove this section of the number plate and put it right up behind there. That will transform the back, but actually the back view of it, very nice. Simple plastics around there. I mean, it's clearly not the finest quality in the world, but it actually works for a utilitarian style motorcycle like this. 2 grab rails there for the passenger. Lovely style seat here, really nice. Decent amount of cushion. I quite like the material used on it, but it is, as you can see here, quite a high jump from the rider itself to the pillion. Plastic side panel there, the single cylinder engine. You've then got these two kind of, I don't know if they're functional as tank protectors or not. I personally would actually probably take those off if I were to buy one of these. I think I would remove it. It would just clean it up for me. Only my personal preference on styling, but that is probably one of the only things I would remove. You've then got this just very small surround of the headlamp, plastic mudguard with a removable extender, so I'd remove that as well just to shorten off the mudguard a bit. You've got the spoked wheels, you've got the single-sided disc, and here's one more thing actually, this comes as standard. Let me just show you what I see. So from the dash here, you have, if I just turn it to the on position, tripper navigation. So that hooks up to your phone, and that actually comes as standard. So tripper navigation, you've got a fuel gauge here. Very simple, if I just push that button, you've got odometer, trip A and trip B. And that is it. Forget about rider modes. You've got ABS, but there's absolutely nothing else. It's also got metal sump guard as well. I really like it looks wise. It's a very good, nice proportion bike. I'm 6'1", and it feels really nice. Distance to my hands, very nice. Leg position, extremely nice. It's a good feeling bike. And I will just show for pillion. I'll get Monica to give her view, or I'll get Monica's view after a little ride. But with the grab rails, it's perfectly pleasant, especially with the grab rails like that. So it's a proper sized bike. Despite being a 411cc engine, Royal Enfield have kept it as a proper sized bike. So you really feel like you can take it on a big adventure. Right, now let's hit the road.
Love is love. Love is love. Adios.
When I picked this bike up from Kmoto in Vilnius, they did say to me, with a bike like this or the Himalayan, brilliant, because there are almost limitless country paths, tracks and routes that you can take your bike off on. And a bike like the Scram 411, perfect for it. I mean, just look around us. There's no one here. The feeling of space here in Lithuania is incredible. And the Scram 411, in this situation, it looks completely superb. Really, a very, very sharp looking bike. Right, one thing I did forget to mention on the walk around, the quality, the fit and finish for such, I mean, this is beyond competitively priced, but it's a very nice fit and finish. It may not be to the same out of this world standard as the classic 350, but does it need to be? That's not what this is about. It's got a good enough fit and finish everywhere, even that, the headlamps around, even that's metal. It's very good. It's very good for what it is. Right. Exhaust note. This is, of course, a 411cc single. It's got a throaty burble. And it's perfectly nice enough. Let me be honest though, this engine, out of the 3 engines on or in Royal Enfield's lineup, this for me is the weakest engine of the lot by quite some distance. It may have slightly more horsepower than the 350cc engine in the Meteor and the classic 350, but the 350cc engine for me is a much, much better, more solid engine. It feels more grunty, it feels stronger. The tone from the engine is much better. There are also less vibrations on the 350 engine when compared to this engine. This in theory has a top speed of 80 miles an hour. It will get to 60 miles an hour with no issue at all, and it will cover ground at an acceptable standard. There's no surge in pace anywhere, but it will get you up to 60 without too many problems. However, going from 60 to 70, it starts running out of energy, and you need a fairly long straight on the motorway to be able to get to the heady heights of 75 to 80 miles an hour. If you're on a slight incline on the motorway, 70 miles an hour may well drop to around 65 if you don't drop into 4th gear. So it's certainly no award winner of an engine. It feels rugged enough, it feels basic and tough enough, but it's certainly not the most characterful engine, and it's certainly not the strongest feeling engine. Suspension, it's good enough. I know that some people say the suspension and the brakes, they should be significantly better, but it's not a powerful bike. They do the job well enough. The front brake's a little bit spongy, as is the rear brake. It doesn't really matter at all. You get a very slight vibration coming through the foot pegs, and that slightly increases when you get to 70 miles an hour plus. However, it's not that bad at all, and it doesn't stop you from being able to do, which you could definitely do on this bike, any kind of touring and all-day riding. However, the seat, while it looks very good and it's padded enough, because of the design, just like that, it does mean that it tends to start pushing you down towards the tank, closer and closer. So every so often you are having to shimmy back a bit. And the nature of the bike being in its DNA an adventure bike with slightly higher suspension does mean that you lose a bit of the feel, a bit of the connection with the road. So for road riding, a road-specific bike is much better for the feel, but that goes for any BMW Scrambler, Triumph Scrambler, any Scrambler on the market now. The higher suspension, it just means exactly the same way as a 4x4 car. You will lose some of the feel, some of the connection to the road, and it does feel very slightly wallowy when you're going from left to right. The gearbox, exactly the same with the Himalayan. They'll have the same gearbox. I remember when I rode the Himalayan, I thought it feels what I would imagine a tractor's gearbox to feel like, and this is exactly the same. It goes in with a fairly agricultural clonk into different gears, and you do get a fair amount of false neutrals and a little bit of struggling to get it into gear from a standstill. For example, a few times in traffic lights in Vilnius, it says the green N for neutral, take my hand off the clutch and it just stalls because it's still in first gear. Right, because this is a Scrambler, 196 kilos with some fuel and about 185 kilos without. And this is a bike, this is why I love it. It's made to be ridden. It's made to be pushed to the limits. It's made to be chucked around the place. And at this price point, you don't feel too bad about doing it. So, how is it? Lean angle, not so much, but just the weight of lifting it up. Boy, it's not too bad, actually. The weight is situated fairly low down. So, it feels like a perfectly manageable bike to lift up in case you get into a problem situation. Well, it's a nice place for some country lanes, or some, would you call them country lanes in Lithuania? It's a nice place for a few off-road tracks. So let's go, nowhere in mind, I think we're about 60 kilometers from Belarus, but let's head that way and see what we can find. It transitions very well from being a perfectly decent road bike to being a perfectly decent soft roader. And the magic with this bike comes from the stripped back nature of it, the adventure bike DNA, which really encourages you to just transition from road to gravel to some soft off-roading to being out all day on the bike. And the price, you know, at £4,600, it means that I have immeasurably more fun than if I was on a £10,000 bike. You know, that 24 horsepower coupled with the price means that it's an amount of power that I can push to the limit on the road and on gravel, but never worry too much if I drop it. You drop it, you laugh, you pick it up again. It's what it's made for. It's made to be roughed up. 24 horsepower with fairly soft brakes and soft suspension off-road in fairly soft off-roading conditions like this, it means that you're never going to get yourself out of shape. It means that even if you brake, they're not snatchy brakes. It's just a nice gradual transition onto the brakes. If you really give it some accelerator, you're not going to spin out the rear wheel. It's a lovely amount of power for off-roading. In fact, I wouldn't want even 1 horsepower more for off-roading in situations like this. Yeah, there are negatives about this bike, as I mentioned earlier, but the overall feeling that you get from the bike is just one of a really enjoyable, pleasurable riding experience. It really is a very, very nice bike to be on, despite all of those drawbacks. Oh, if you're Lithuanian, not just Lithuanian, anyone, to have a bike like this with scenery like we've got like this, it's a dream. I just want to point and shoot this bike up every single track. I know I've said it earlier, but it's just so fun. It turns every day, we're about 30 minutes outside of Vilnius, an incredible adventure. There is, sorry if the camera's going, there's about 5 mosquitoes attacking Monica. Look at this, here, a path going up here, a sand track going up here, another one here. It's just limitless everywhere. It's incredible. Okay, right. There is one thing I wanted to mention. It's got the trip and navigation as standard, this. And I still, I can't get along with it. It's a shame. I think it comes as standard. I don't think, if I had the option, I don't think I'd spec it with it. I like to see the road, see where I'm going, see the different route options, and also know how much time I've got left on the route. I went wrong about twice because I couldn't quite figure out where the tripper was trying to take me. So personally for me, I'm still in the school of thinking that there's nothing better than your phone, just clip it onto the handlebars. Right. The competition. This is very relevant because I've done this recently. If I look at this bike compared to the Fantic Caballero, that is the 450cc Italian Scrambler. It costs £6,700 and it is about 40 horsepower. And after riding this now, the Scram, yes, the Scram may be heavier, it may be down on power by about 16 horsepower, but it's £2,100 cheaper. £2,100. It is a colossal amount of money, and my personal opinion, I think the Scram 411 is a better built bike, and completely truthfully, even if they were the same price, I would probably choose the Scram. The fact the Scram is over £2,000 cheaper, for me, it's the superior motorcycle. You can also then look at the SIZZAPP pillion 401, that's a 400cc bike, it's £5,300 and it's about 43 horsepower. That may be down on weight and up on horsepower, and it's a good looking bike, but it doesn't quite have that adventure focus that the Scram 411 has because it's a much physically smaller bike. So this is a bike that I would feel much more comfortable putting panniers on and doing some proper touring on over the SIZZAPP pillion, although that does look a good bike and I've never tested it. Now, the Himalayan. And I've ridden the Himalayan, but unfortunately I rode it just before we started the YouTube channel, so I haven't yet done a video on it. That is in essence exactly the same bike as this, but more adventure focused, and you pay a £100 premium. And it really does depend on what day of the week you ask me this as to which one I prefer. Ask me today after I've had a day to enjoy this bike, and it's close and it's subjective, and I would understand if you argue against it. I would just, and only just, pick the Scram 411 over the Himalayan. I slightly, and again very slightly, prefer the looks. I very slightly prefer the slightly more on-road biased feel of the bike, and I very, very slightly like the feel of this bike over the Himalayan. I'm sorry, I'm speaking the best I can, but I'm watching Monica in the background fighting with about 50 midges. So yes, it's a tough one, but it's a close one, just this over the Himalayan. I could spend all day out here on these tracks. It is unspeakably good fun, this bike off-roading. It's a bike that's been built from the humblest of parts, and it doesn't excel in any area at all. If you were to ask me, Freddie, would you recommend the Scram 411? I would say absolutely, but don't go to the dealership expecting to be blown away by this bike, because you won't, because there are no headline grabbing areas here. It's a bike that very much gets under your skin. Look, there are many better bikes than this, but for the mix of feel-good factor, fun and price, I don't think there's anything that comes close to it, and I would hugely recommend this bike to anyone. And we'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much to Kmoto for lending me this bike for 2 weeks. Go and check them out. They're in Vilnius. I cannot imagine a better country than Lithuania to have this exact bike. It feels like it's been tailor-made for this country. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Let me know, Himalayan or Scram 411. Thank you so much. We'll see you in the next one, and have a brilliant week.